our agenda. We're gonna talk about Super Hornet and Growler programs, why they are the best solution for defense of Finland, and our industrial participation approach in HX. For our speakers today, which you are most likely very familiar with, we have Thom Breckenridge, Vice President of International Strike, Surveillance and Mobility. Suomeksi kääntyy helpoiten johtaja, kansainvälinen myynti. And we have of course Laine, Vice President of International Strategic Partnerships. Suomeksi helpoiten johtaja, teollinen yhteistyö. And of course Alain Garcia, Capture Team Lead for Finland and Switzerland, hx-kampanjan johtaja. We will speak about 30 minutes and have a Q&A afterwards, so please save your questions until the end. And going forward, you will have an opportunity to have one-on-one discussions if needed. And obviously, we're living in the middle of pandemic, so please follow any public safety instructions, avoid handshakes, keep a distance if you can, and so on. Thank you. Thom, please.
Thank you. It's nice to see everybody. This has been quite the unexpected year that we've had. I remember very fondly being with, I know many of you last year when we were in Turku, so it's nice to see some familiar faces in a year when we haven't had a lot of opportunities to have air shows and have events like this. So as Olli mentioned, we're excited today to talk about the F-18 and the Growler for Finland. As Olli already mentioned, my name is Thom Breckenridge, and I lead our international sales for our Strike Surveillance and Mobility division. So that includes the Growler, the F-18, T-7, and some of our other products. I'm going to just focus very briefly a little bit on what we're doing outside of Finland, and then I'll hand it over to Alain, who will talk more specifically about what we're doing here in Finland and what we're offering. And we have a lot of news to share. Since we were together a year ago, one of the most important things that has happened is in Germany. And in Germany, building on the success that we've had with the US Navy program, the German government has announced their intent to move forward with the purchase of Super Hornets and Growlers. So that is a major announcement that took place earlier this year as that country down selects to a combination, a solution very similar to the one that we're proposing to Finland. Obviously, we see a lot of similarities, a lot of commonality between the needs, the defense needs that Germany has, as well as the defense needs that Finland has. So that's an exciting development that's taken place. We'll touch on some of the other ones as well, but in general, what we're seeing here internationally for Super Hornet and Growler is really an unprecedented level of interest. So building on the success that we've had with the US Navy, pointing out the 5 or so major competitions that are publicly known, the competitions that I know you're all familiar with, that represents an aircraft quantity of more than 400 aircraft. So when you consider these 5 countries, and I'll touch a little bit on all of them, and I think importantly, I should point out that these aren't the only countries with whom we're having conversations. And the reasons why we won't go into all of them, of course, is due to the public nature. But just to re-emphasize the unprecedented nature of the interest that we have in the platform and in the capability, and really the suitability for both the needs of countries and the ability to address modern threats. So I talked about Germany. In India, we're competing both with the Indian Navy and in the Indian Air Force. The Indian Navy, interestingly, you may have seen some reports coming out of the US or of India, but we are actually undergoing with the US Navy now ski jump testing at Naval Air Station Patuxent River in Maryland in the United States. And what that is to really verify the Super Hornets' suitability and ability to work with the Indian Navy carriers, which of course are STOBAR, the short takeoff but arrested recovery, the ski jump type carriers. So we're, along with the Navy, Boeing is investing in that testing to prove out its capability, which we really think is uniquely well suited for Indian Navy needs. And I think that just really speaks to both Boeing's approach and the US Navy's approach of continued investment in this platform as we anticipate many decades of viability and of use throughout the world. So that's what's happening in India. Also in Canada and in Switzerland, those of course, like Finland, are classic Hornet operators. Again, many of the characteristics are very similar. In the case of Canada, obviously Arctic conditions. In the case of Switzerland, a lot of the same infrastructure rather. And so just as we are in Finland, we are offering Super Hornet capability both to Canada and to Switzerland. In the case of Canada, that proposal was provided to the Canadian government at the end of July. In the case of Switzerland, that'll be provided here in the fall timeframe. Again, Boeing working with the US Navy. And we're feeling very positive about our offers in both places, just as we are globally, for a lot of the same reasons that we feel that our offering is very well suited for Finland, which Alain will talk about. But the ability to leverage the existing infrastructure, the long and proven track record that we've had in Canada and in Switzerland of meeting our industrial commitments and really bringing significant economic benefits and jobs to both countries. Maria will talk about that more in detail. So again, just a little bit of a highlight of what we're doing internationally, why we feel very optimistic about the Super Hornet and the Growler's prospects internationally, just as we do in the US. And now I'll turn it over to Alain to talk more specifically and in detail about Finland. Thank you.
Thank you, Thom. All right, good afternoon, everybody. As mentioned, my name is Alain Garcia. I think I've met most of you, but for those of you who don't know me, I am the capture team lead for the Boeing company here in Finland and also working a Swiss campaign. A quick background about myself is I am a former US Navy F-18 pilot, did 11 years there, and then I've also flown various platforms with the Boeing company as well. So, and just now ended up here and located here in Finland working the Finnish campaign. So of course what I'm here to talk about today is why the Super Hornet Block 3 and the advanced Growler are the best fit for Finland in terms of the defense of the country. I think you've heard most of these points before, just to refresh everyone's memory. We are the incumbent here in terms of having the 25-year history working with the Finnish Air Force and the Finnish industry. And again, Maria will talk about that more. But also, we truly believe the offer of the Super Hornet Block 3 and the Advanced Growler are the most capable and game-changing capabilities that we can offer in the competition. Some of these that you've seen before, again, are probably just as important, if not more important, in today's environment, given the economic impacts, and we'll talk about why it's the ease of transition from the Hornet to the Super Hornet and Growler are impacting in terms of the budget. No need, obviously, for expensive infrastructure costs. We'll talk about why that's important now, and as you transition to a later whatever platform you select. And then, of course, the life cycle costs are always an important thing when you talk about budgets, and then the dispersed CONOPS and the security supply, of course, are always important points as well. And we'll cover these as we go through the slides. Okay, as I mentioned, we are offering the Super Hornet Block 3. Some of the highlights of the Super Hornet Block 3 here are the advanced cockpit system, as you can see in the corner. Essentially, it's 11 by 19 large area display, touchscreen ability, and the ability to better display all the data that allows the pilot to have better situational awareness of the battle space. Along with that, to help provide that data in the airplane is the DTPN, the Distributed Target Processor Network, as well as the Advanced Tactical Data Link. Those allow the airplane to input and also output whatever data is received by offboard sensors and onboard sensors, and to fuse that data and to provide a common tactical picture that can be shared along with everybody else that's in the link, so everybody knows exactly what's going on in the battlefield, and that's quite important. One of the other big additions for the Block 3 is the 10,000 hour plus airframe. Of course, the current ones now are 6,000, so obviously you can utilize the platform into the 2060s is desired by Finland. One thing that's also part of the Block 3 is the conformal fuel tanks. So the conformal fuel tanks allow obviously a greater range as you can carry them. You can actually open up weapon stations to carry more weapons without having to put external fuel tanks to still keep the same type of range capability. One of the other things too that's not necessarily directly related to Block 3 but is part of the configuration that we're offering is the IRS, the Infrared Search and Track Sensor. This is essentially a technology that we've demonstrated here during the Winter Challenge back in February, and what that sensor does, it allows you to track an airplane by its heat signature, so thereby not so what that allows you to do is essentially track any platform with its heat signature, and it doesn't matter if it's stealth or not. Everything gives off a heat signature if it's flying through the air, and you can utilize this sensor to track that. Some other type of things that we would discuss in Block 3 is the open architecture. Obviously, as we're continuing to develop the airplane in the future, as you're going to use this for the next 30 years, you can continue to develop technology and capability into it quite easily. So that's features being built in. And then also, one thing we're also offering is the air-to-air refueling capabilities. And while that's not necessarily one would look at as a tactical capability, it does allow the Finnish Air Force to be able to have its organic in-flight refueling capability and to kind of change its con-ops, if you will, tactically, which could actually have a big impact if you utilize it correctly. So that's something that is also coming with the Super Hornet Block 3. As far as the Super Hornet Block 3 itself, there's some big news that we had here just recently, even given the COVID environment. We were able to conduct our first actual test flights of the Block 3 Super Hornet back in June, and then since we've actually also delivered the first two Block 3 jets to the Navy for suitability testing, and that test will continue going forward here, obviously in time to prepare for delivery of here in 2025 if we're selected for Finland. And also we are continuing, along with that, we're continuing to upgrade the Block 2 Super Hornets to a Block 3 configuration in our service life modification line, and we've already delivered the 20th one as of this month. So things are moving in that direction quite well for the Navy also. Okay, and so the other part of the half of the offer here is the EA-18G Advanced Growler. And so the big things here with the Growler, essentially we're upgrading, are taking the Block 3 pieces, such as the advanced cockpit system, the DTPN, the advanced tactical data link, and integrating those into the Growler, advanced Growler, if you will, along with some other features. The conformal fuel tanks also come along with the Growler, which again open up stations for carrying different configurations and weapons onto the platform. The one thing here too that is part of the Growler offer is the next generation jammer. And as you can see there, you know, so the big news about the next gen jammer is actually we just had its first flight on the airplane 2 weeks ago. So again, it is something that is real. It is getting tested, and it will be fielded in time for delivery to Finland, should you choose Growler. Let's see. That's it. So why is the Growler part of the offer here, and what is the importance of Growler? So while this is just they look like a simple diagram, this actually speaks a lot about what the Growler's capabilities are and what it can bring to Finland. So as you can see, what we're looking at here is what we would call the electromagnetic spectrum. It covers all the frequencies that you could see in the battle space. And so why this is important is while other platforms claim that they can have EW capability, which is true to a sense, but it's mostly for self-protection, or it operates only in a certain bandwidth, is what you can see up in the pink band there. And so this is where essentially I would say stealth resides, and you can use your radar, your ASA radar, to address this. But what you also need is the rest of the spectrum there to be addressed, and that is where the Growler and the NGJ pods come into effect. And so what that allows you to do is address the enemy's kill chain and break it at any point in the process, if you will. So why that's important, it provides Finland's not only joint force commanders, but your political leaders an option to address what we call the gray zone or gray area in a conflict. So what that means is, as you're ramping up into a potential conflict type environment, you can use Growler to deter, degrade certain sensors, the ability for the enemy to again ramp up to a conflict level, and you can ramp that down without firing any shots. And that's the important thing. So you can address things non-kinetically without firing a shot, and gives politicians that option to address certain threats, or I guess one of the things that I would say too that I guess Finland has experienced is the GPS issue to the north. So without going into details, because it's a classified way of how it does it, but the Growler can address that type of issue and give your politicians and your decision makers the ability to address that without firing any shots, if that makes sense. So I think that's very important to understand what Growler brings to the table, because everybody talks about how you can take out the enemy kinetically, you can destroy things, but it's not necessarily always the case here, and Growler brings that option to you. And we had talked about Finland's dispersed basing system. This is definitely something that we believe the Super Hornet and Growler are the best suited for, especially given that the Hornet is currently conducting these type of operations. One of the things that Super Hornet and Growler have is precision landing mode built into the software, and that allows the pilots to essentially do spot landings pretty much every time. It's very accurate, so when you're working on short roads and runways, this is very critical, and this is actually used on the carriers already. The shorter takeoff and landing distances, we demonstrated this at the Winter Challenge. On average, given the configuration, the Super Hornet and Growler actually take off about 1,000 feet shorter than the current Hornet. And then also with the slower approach speeds, and then the high sink rates, again, which allow for the spot landings.
Is that 1,000 feet shorter takeoff than the current?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously the brakes, the brakes and the landing gear allow the jet obviously to land in a much shorter landing distance as well. And then of course with the tail hook, that's one of the specific features that's unique to the Super Hornet and Growler, which allow you to take the arrested landings that actually other planes can do arrested landings, but there's some maintenance that has to be done after that, where the Growler and Super Hornet can just take the arrested landing, raise the hook, and then taxi away and go fly again without any maintenance inspections. And of course, 2 engines is pretty much better than 1 in my opinion. I mean, I'm a little biased. And then obviously the minimal maintenance to logistics footprint that you need in the distributed operations. I think we demonstrated this during the flight evaluation here in Finland when we brought 3 jets over, 2 Super Hornets and a Growler, and we put all the maintenance personnel and all the equipment we need for that evaluation on a single DC-10 tanker and flew it halfway around the world to get here. So. Oops, sorry. And so the last point I'll make here in terms of why we think the Super Hornet Growler are a very good fit for Finland is the ease of transition. So I think this is even more important today than it was before due to the economic environment. The critical thing here, I think everybody wants to be assured is, can it fit in the current budget? Absolutely, in terms of the life cycle costs, the Super Hornet Growler fleet can fit in the current Hornet operational cost. The transition from a Hornet to a Super Hornet or Growler pilot is 10 flights. So if you're a qualified Hornet pilot with some experience, you can do 10 flights. It's maybe a month's time frame to convert from one platform to the other. And this also goes as well for the maintenance personnel. It's a very short time for them to convert. You can use up to 60% of the current infrastructure. To support your Super Hornet and Growler fleet. And why this is important as well is if you think about whatever platform you purchase next, there's a point where you're going to be operating two fleets. You're going to be operating your current Hornet fleet and then whatever fleet you're transitioning into. So you're going to have two sets of infrastructure, two sets of logistical supply chains. And if you go with a Super Hornet Growler solution, it's really almost seamless transition. You can use the same infrastructure to support both fleets. And that is a lot of cost savings in that years that you transition in, also as well as going forward. And then of course, with the capability insertion plan of the future, of course, that will keep the Growler viable and the Super Hornet viable to the 2060s. So with that being said, we really believe this is a true multi-role combination for Finland. Looking at the F-18 Super Hornet itself, it is a true multi-role fighter. It was designed that way from the start. It is in the name of the jet itself by the FA designation. It's the only one that carries that fighter and attack. And along with the Growler, you give yourself a complete package of and the flexibility to operate and address all these mission sets. And that's something that I believe Finland really needs, given you're buying one set of airplanes. You want the most versatility, the most capable, and the most flexible to not only address your requirements now, but to be able to grow in the future and address whatever threats may occur then. So some of the other platforms you can see here in the tent that we have is the air-powered teaming system. It is being developed by our Boeing Defense Australia organization, and it's just one of the things that you've seen in the media, and we can discuss further. And then also, as you see, the T7 here, I recently designated the Red Hawk. I think last time we discussed it did not have the designation, so obviously this is one of our key platforms as well that we will feature here at the air show. We can also answer questions about that later. And with that being said, I will turn the presentation over to Maria.
Thanks, Alan. Hyvää päivää, tervetuloa ja kiva nähdä taas. I think most of you know me. I have met almost all of you over the years, but if you don't, I'm Laine. I have the responsibility for Boeing's global industrial collaboration programs worldwide. And I think as most of you know, Finland is very near and dear to my heart since it is also my motherland and where I was born. So just a few words about our philosophy and how we approach industrial participation and what we're doing about the HX program. So again, as you know, the Boeing company, we do have a wonderful advantage that we are such a large global company, and we do have the global reach, but we ensure that we have the local focus. It's incredibly important that on my team I have specialists and subject matter experts who really do understand the exact requirements of every single country, as industrial participation requirements truly do differ from country to country. And it's important that we have the customers' national objectives in mind as we develop our programs. So my teams are responsible for ensuring that we maintain the relationships with the government customer to ensure that we have the full understanding of their requirements. We develop the tailor-made industrial engagement programs in accordance with those requirements. And then my team, in addition to having to develop the plans and the strategies and the partnerships for a campaign, we are also responsible for executing them to ensure that we have a successful program when all is said and done. And of course, the important thing about my team does as well, particularly what's of high interest for Finnish industry, is we do serve as that portal into the entire global Boeing company. So it really does offer kind of a one-stop shop for them to get through us and help put them in touch with the right technology and supply chain networks in working in our organization. So one of the things that, again, Boeing Company, it is the world's largest aerospace and defense company. And yes, clearly this has been a challenging year, no doubt about it. And particularly for the commercial aerospace business. And it has had impacts to our supply chains. Having said all that, we are on the Boeing Defense, Space and Security side, this is a very robust business. We are in an incredibly fortunate situation when you look at the depth and breadth of our platforms and what comes into our portfolios, above and beyond the products that you're familiar with, such as the Super Hornet and Growler. We also had a major victory this year with the launch of the F-15EX. So that F-15 fighter has a new life through the EX program with the contract from the U.S. Air Force. In addition to that, we have all of our rotorcraft vertical lift platforms such as Apache, Chinook, the V-22 Osprey. We've got our commercial derivative platforms such as the KC-46, the P-8 multi-mission maritime aircraft, and of course all of our weapons systems. So it's just a multitude of depth and breadth that we can tap into, and we do that for all of our industrial programs. So within the Boeing Company, I also serve as the chair of the Industrial Participation Council at the enterprise level, so that I do work across the entire enterprise. And also that includes our services business, a very key piece of this, where, as you know, Boeing Global Services was stood up as an independent business unit, and that is certainly a key partnership when we are looking to develop our industrial programs, develop the right partnerships for local indigenous sustainment capabilities and lifecycle support of our platforms. Those become really important, and particularly here in Finland, that is something that has been key to our offering for industrial participation. So one of the things, and I think many of you have seen this chart before, we are very proud of our track record of success. As I mentioned, we aren't just responsible for developing the campaign strategies and proposals, but we have to execute on them. These are decade-long programs, and I'm very proud of the fact that the team has really delivered ahead of schedule, on time, within budget, every single one of our programs over the last 40-some years, over $55 billion worth of economic benefits and industrial return into the countries that we work with. I think that's certainly the case here in Finland. As you recall, we had a very long partnership on the original program with over 25 years of experience here. And that is something that for the future of the HX campaign and for the industrial participation proposal, we are in a very strong position to leverage that and to build on the continuity of those partnerships and to really ensure that when we are going forward for the future HX platform, we're able to offer a similar type of program. In the past program, we did have over $3 billion worth of benefits that we worked with 220 different Finnish companies. But most importantly, in terms of what it has done for the affordable life cycle cost and the ability to support the classic Hornets here on the ground independently, securing the supply for the Finnish Air Force as they need it, that is something that we can and will tailor make going forward for our future program. Now, I can't go into any of the details since we are still in a competition-sensitive situation in terms of what's the full offering that we're putting together, but you can be rest assured that it's going to be very similar to what we did in the last program. So I think in the interest of time, there's only a little bit of time for Q&A, so why don't we turn it over to the whole team to answer some questions.
Okay, about those unmanned oil wingman systems, which are very popular today, I guess that none of them is fully ready yet. If they were, would they be a part of package for Finland?
So I would say that as we can never talk about what's going to be offered as part of the total package, but if there's interest by the customer, those are things that we can discuss to see if it would fit in their capability needs, potentially put in the offer.
And I would just add to that your statement I think is true, but with what we have, I would argue it's much more developed than some competitors in the sense that we'll be doing first flight later this year. So just as an example of where we are on the timeline versus others, being a little bit different.
I think that there is a need to make a difference between land about the multi-usage unmanned platforms which can climb and land back to land, and ones which are launched only once from the aircraft.
Correct. Yeah. This is definitely when you would launch from land and you would recover back on land, it's a reusable platform, of course. Absolutely.
Can I press you a little bit on what kind of industries will benefit from this? Is it just going to be research and development, or will there be any manufacturing?
So of course certainly the nature of the program, and a big difference from the previous program, is that based on the current requirements, it does need to be very heavily focused in the defense sector and related to certainly the procurement at hand, or more targeted towards Finnish national security interests. So it does run the gamut all the way from technology collaboration, R&D opportunities, as well as some manufacturing opportunities. A significant focus, as I mentioned, on the life cycle support of the platform and transferring the technology, the know-how, really through our partnerships here locally, and making sure that they can sustain the platform on their own. But so it really does run the whole breadth and scale of opportunities, but primarily focused on the defense industry.
Can you give an approximation of how many jobs the Superhornet will bring to Finland, or what the turnover will be for the Finnish industry?
Well, the value of the program is 30% of the contract value. So if you're looking at a $10 billion program, then you're talking about roughly $3 billion, which was the magic number that we had to hit last time too. And we had no problem meeting this number. We delivered it very much on time, ahead of schedule, and to the full satisfaction of our customer. So hopefully we'll do another $3 billion of the same.
Yes, I have a two-part question. I asked you guys earlier, with the material we have seen on the F-15X, and there's these quad missile pilots. Can these be fitted into the advanced Super Hornet? And
I missed there's what?
the quad pilots, there's four missile places for the
Yes. I think I know what you're talking about. It's a high level export business on EGI. So this is something that we're of course studying. Some sort of request. It would have to be certified in the jet. From a certification issue, I don't think it would be a problem. It's just we'd have to go through the process to do it. But we've already had studies on it, if you will.
Okay, yeah. And the other part of the question is that
to the government, but it's hard to offer something that's not physically done yet. We don't want to promise anything we can't deliver. So we are it's on the roadmap for Super Hornet. And then if the customer wants it in the future, they can request it.
I think that officially weapons and sensors for a HX fighter are officially separate competition, which will be coordinated with the fighter and the fighter manufacturer. But they are in fact run separately.
Say that again, the sensors and the weapons?
The sensors and the weapons are in separate competition.
I wouldn't say that. I think we're have to offer a total package to include the sensors and the weapons.
Yep.
So it is one big offer, and for us, we're taking it as one competition. So that's our understanding of how the criteria for the competition works. So everything in our offer includes the platforms, the associated sensors, and the associated weapons. So the customer has been pretty clear on kind of what the focus that they want and where the priorities are, and we have to meet those requirements. And that definitely includes a big weapons package.
We're talking about numbers. I think the existing Hornet package is about 63 airframes. Is it intended to be a like for like? Will it be the same number? And what about the split between airframes? I think the Finnish Air Force slightly underestimated how many two-seaters they would need last time. Has that balance been changed slightly?
So those are still discussions we're having with the customer. So I can't really talk about specific numbers in what's being offered, but all of the single seat, the two seat, and the Growler, obviously they're all part of the discussion and can be part of the package. The numbers, I can't discuss specific numbers, but I would assume we're going to definitely provide enough airplanes to meet the requirement of fulfill the capability. So it's really up, at the end of the day, how much the customer needs. We have a number that we'll provide, and we feel it will meet the requirement to fulfill the capability. I just can't get into specific numbers on the model mix or the total number of aircraft. That's just something that we can't discuss due to the competition sensitivities. But to give like a reference in the mixes, if you look at like a normal U.S. Navy carrier airplane, you can see the composition of how the ratio is there. That kind of might give you an idea of kind of things we're looking at in terms of numbers.
And a quick thing about the refueling, you mentioned the ability to have air-to-air refueling. Is that offer specifically from a separate air-to-air refueling asset, or will it be sort of something like a buddy system?
It's a buddy system on the Super Hornet. It's what the Navy does now